Hey there, I am Christy Ruffino, former broke single mom turned CEO of 2 six-figure businesses and best-selling author with 15 books. But it wasn't always like this. Not long ago, I was a hot mess. Yes, I did a lot of things right, but mostly I was throwing spaghetti on the wall to see what would stick. Fast forward past many failed attempts and a few incredible victories, I not only get to share what I've learned along the way, I get to bring together top influencers as they share their empowering stories, insider secrets, and valuable resources that can be used right now to step into your power. So, if you're an ambitious entrepreneur, or possibly one in the making, and you're looking to create a business and life that lights you up, well then you're in the right place. Well, hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Mastery Unleashed podcast. I am Christy Ruffino, the host of the show, and I have a special guest I can't wait to introduce to you all today. So, I don't know if you are new to our show, or maybe you've been a long time listener. I know I have quite a few people who have been dedicated to our show since we launched almost 2 years ago. Actually, it's been over 2 years already. And it's been fun. I've had so many great guests, and the focus has typically been around helping entrepreneurs, bringing on experts who have become masters at what they do, and they want to share a little bit about their story and some strategies to help you move forward in your life or business. And that's exactly what we're going to do today, because the guest I have is very special. I really enjoyed our conversation. I've enjoyed our business friendship. We've been kind of swimming around in the same pool for, almost a year. She is, whenever you feel that mindset of scarcity, you need to let that go, because the world is such an abundant place. And my guest today has a specific focus around story. And I could have perceived that as a competitor, but there is no such thing as competition. There really isn't, because even if somebody teaches the same things that I teach, they're teaching it from a different perspective. They're teaching it from different experiences, and they're going to connect with people differently. And the goal for me, and hopefully you, if you're an entrepreneur out there, and every seasoned expert, it's not necessarily about us getting what we want, but us providing what our clients need. And that's why today is so special, because my guest is KATJA Rusanen, and she is a story specialist, but is opposed to what I do and helping people kind of navigate and leverage story to attract clients and serve their clients. She helps people navigate through their stories to achieve personal growth and to break through whatever is holding them back so they can write their next best story. What she says is your stumbling block could become your stepping stone, which I love that when she said that. And in our interview today, she is going to talk a lot about story. She's going to share her story, and I'm not going to even tell you what it is because I want you to listen, and it's very powerful. And then she is going to share some strategies and some resources to help you empower your life through your story. So, without further ado, let's move on to this interview, and you can learn how to tap into the secret power of your story with myself and KATJA Rusanen. So we will see you shortly, or no, you will hear us shortly. Oh my gosh, welcome, Katja. I'm so excited that we are talking today. I know we've done a few events together. We've been in communities together, and we've had this scheduled for a while. So I'm so excited that the day has finally come. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, you know what I love is we are both kind of playing in the same sandbox. We're both helping people with their story. However, you're coming at it from a different perspective that I'm coming at. A little bit of overlap, but you have a completely different philosophy than I do. Not different, same philosophy, but you help people in a different way with your story. And I am just super excited for us to be able to share this interview with my audience, because I know they're going to learn more and more about how they can leverage their story in their business and maybe in their life. So are you ready to get going?
Yes, I am. And thank you so much for this opportunity. I love talking about stories. And that was how we connected as well. The story connected us to share our stories.
Absolutely. So how did you get started in this? What is your story around being an expert in story?
It actually started when I was 16 years old. I was growing up in the countryside in Finland, so that's where this accent comes from, if you were wondering. And I fell in love for the first time. You know, the first love, and all of a sudden the birds are singing their sweet melodies, the sun is shining brighter, and I just felt this bubbling happiness inside of me. And most likely people also remember their first love. But unfortunately, my love story did not end with the happily ever after. It ended when I heard the news that my boyfriend had died by suicide. And
Wow.
that put me into a very dark place because I could not understand why. And the grief that I felt, like I was just 16. So the grief was so overwhelming. And the question why this happened was like a wound that would not stop bleeding. And I was going through every minute and every word that I could remember, trying to find an explanation or signs that I had ignored. And I started to think that I should have been more attentive. I should have been more attractive, more everything. And if I would have been that, he would have stayed. So I was my fault. That was a story that I bought into, and I felt like I was not enough. And I went to such a dark place that I did not see tomorrow. And that almost killed me. Like I was very close to end my own life because I just felt the guilt. And luckily there was a moment when I was almost ending my life. I was in the river, like just wanting to leave this world. But there was a moment when I just got a glimpse of light coming through. And I remembered my parents, and they laughed for me. And even though I was having all this pain that made me want to end everything, I felt like I don't want to do this to anybody else. I can't do this for my parents. And that made me turn back, and I chose life. And that choice started my healing journey through the grief, darkness, and trauma.
Yes.
And then it was healing journey is a healing journey. It's for me, it took a long time, and I was wanting to first not to share this story. For 15 years, I was wanting to push this story away, close this chapter, never look back into it. But that did not make these feelings, these thoughts go away. And it wasn't until a day when I went to Palm Reader. That's a place where you go when you want to look for a future, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted some guidance, and this palm reader just asked me one of the questions. He said many things very accurately, but then he asked me, why don't you write? And that question stirred something inside of me, and I felt like he knew that I have a story to tell. And that night, I went home and I started writing what became my first novel. So that's how I really got into stories. And while I was writing that novel, where is the core event is my own story, I got into like seeing things from different perspectives. And the shift really happened when I realized that life didn't happen to me, it happened for me.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And that brought me into place when I actually wanted to start sharing my story. And when I started sharing my story, it started with the one person, and it felt so scary. But when I did it, I felt this deep heart-to-heart connection. And that person opened up and shared things as well with me. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. What can happen when we have the courage to share our stories?
Absolutely. So I want to back up a little bit because I was so enthralled with your story, and I had so many questions that I wanted to ask along the way. I mean, just the whole topic of suicide is a really messy conversation, right? But it's something that's really important. And I want to, even though this is kind of like a how your story got here, but I don't want to, I just feel that we really need to touch on that really quick, because if anybody's listening right now and for whatever reason they are in a place where they're in a dark spot, I love how you mentioned you thought about your family and the love that you still had that was out there for you, because I know having suicide in my family that it tends to kind of create a cycle. And when you do that, when you make that decision, it affects so many other people. You don't know that at the time because you're in such a dark place, and you can't see, like you said, you couldn't see tomorrow, but you were able to get out of your own way and at least have that little glimpse of vision about your mom, maybe seeing your parents crying and mourning you, and you didn't want to do that for them. So not only do I commend you for having the strength to get on the other side of that and to stay focused, but I also love how sharing your story can help others maybe recognize that perspective as well and realize that if you got through that, so can they. And that's why when you were brave enough to share your story the first time, I'm sure the person that was listening to you or, shared their story back felt a little bit of strength as well, even though their story may be different. When we see somebody else overcome something, it empowers us. And that's what is so great about story and sharing it, is it's a way to serve others.
That's right. And thank you for noticing that, because that really inspired me to then start sharing more, because I just want to bring a glimpse of light, glimpse of hope for someone who might be in a dark place, going through challenging times, and just know that it is possible to find joy again, learn to love life again. That has been my journey during years, learning to love life, learning to love myself. And I got there, and I want people to just get an inspiration that it's possible. Even though I get it, I did not believe that what I'm experiencing now would be possible for me back then.
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to talk about the next part of story in a minute, but I also want to point out that there is an organization that helps people in this place, and it's called NAMI, the National Association of Mental Illness. And even though this is not necessarily a mental illness, they've got so many great resources. So I wanted to point that out. Also, I want to pivot a little bit to story in the perspective that once we're able to kind of get on the other side of our story and kind of dig around in there, it's kind of messy to go in our history, right? Messy to go back to those painful moments. But what that does is it allows us to write our next better story, right? It allows us to kind of reflect on what happened and learn how we can take that hurt healing journey. And I think you said it's not something that happened to you, it happened for you, right? I
That's
think
right.
that's what you said. And that's your area of expertise. I help people with story in their business on leveraging their story to attract clients, but you help people on the healing journey around story.
Yes. And coming to a place when you can start sharing. Because I often say to my clients, if you feel that life happened to you, it's time for healing. And when you start seeing life happen for you, it's time to start sharing, because those lessons you learned can help someone else.
Oh my gosh. So the first time the first time I shared my story in a book, it wasn't in one of my books. It was a different book, which was the catalyst for me to start our Overcoming Mediocrity books. But I shared it. And the first time, one of my clients or members emailed me and told me, thank you for sharing my story, because she was in a similar situation and it really helped her. And so that was the moment that I realized I made the right decision. It's scary. It's scary to share your story, right? You'll have so many things go through your mind. First of all, you're being vulnerable, and then you're open to judgment, and you don't want people to judge you or whoever else is in your story. I mean, there's so many layers of it, but it's so rewarding when you're able to help other people.
That is, and it's freeing as well.
It is.
Because that story, at least for me, was like a deep, dark secret that I felt like I need to hide. And I was worried, if people find out, what would they think of me?
Yes.
And then when I got that courage to start sharing, I actually was surprised how many people had so much love, compassion, and also it opened the door for them to start sharing their stories too.
So we're going to take a commercial break, but I want to challenge the audience, and I want them to think about something that they've gone through in their life that was difficult and how they could have been impacted if they would have had the opportunity to read the story of somebody else that had already gone through what they're in the middle of. And if you can think about sharing your story to help somebody else from the perspective of how helpful it would have been for you, it's just kind of a really great way to kind of have that light bulb moment of, yes, this could be great. This could help somebody else. And maybe I should share my story. Maybe I need to connect with Katja to learn how to navigate that journey.
Beautiful. Yes, because that is bringing yourself in service and seeing the gifts of your story, and you start tapping into the secret power of your story as you're starting to change the story inside of you, where you are telling yourself.
Totally. You grow. It's amazing. So we're going to take a break. So do you mind hanging tight? And everybody hang tight. Don't go away, because Katja's got some great wisdom she wants to share. And I know she has a great free gift to share with our audience today. So don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. This is Christy and Katja Rusanen. Did I say that right?
You did.
All right. And we are having a conversation about story. And Katja has really built a pretty powerful expertise in helping coaches and healers who are struggling with their business use or own the power of their story in order to go to that next place. Is that accurate?
That is. I love helping them to do the work and helping people to transform those limiting inner stories from a stumbling block to a stepping stone.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. Okay. What is an inner story? Because I know we've got a lot of, there's story is a big thing. Heck, we can put a Instagram story out, but what you're referring to is very specific. It's somebody's inner story. You tell me, I don't even want to guess.
Thank you. So inner story is when something happens, we often start giving those things meaning and purpose, because that's just the way how we make sense of this world. And sometimes those stories that we are starting to tell ourselves after this event, how we define who we are, what we are capable to do in the world, and what our life could be like, is based on what stories we are telling inside of us. And that is what I refer in a story. And often those stories actually are not supportive. They are not supporting us to reach our potential and create the impact that we can create in the world. Because we are having these limiting stories that we tell ourselves because we have gone through something that was challenging and influenced how we see ourselves in the world.
Perfect. So our inner stories, and we are our own worst critic, right? We beat ourselves up more than anybody else ever could.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we say things to ourselves that we would never say to somebody else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we play these stories in our mind about certain situations, and they're not always accurate, right? But what happens is it creates these limiting beliefs and these, like you said, stumbling blocks, right? In our life, in our business, and everything. And so how do you help people who are struggling with this navigate through this story process so they become more empowered?
So we take a look of these things in 3 different levels. We start thinking like, okay, what is the thoughts that I have because of something that I went through in the past? What am I telling myself? What's the story I'm telling? For example, for me, it was a long time, I'm not enough. I did not save my boyfriend, so it meant I am not enough. So that was the thought I had. And then it's the feeling. That's the second thing we look into. How does it make you feel? Like, does that make you feel contracted within you, or relaxed, or tense? Is there some part of your body that is activating when you have that thought in your mind? And then we take a look on the physical level. What are the actions or non-actions that you do because you carry that story? And putting that in the context for being an entrepreneur, if you carry the similar story, which is very common, I'm not enough, and then you try to do sales calls or put your work out there to the world, and you carry that I'm not enough, you might not reach all the people you could, because you are stopping yourself before hitting that send button, before you send that message, before you write that email. You say, I'm not enough. Who am I to do this work? And then you are taking a step back and letting opportunities slip.
Right. So even if you don't let these thoughts hold you back and you do take action, isn't it possible that the action you're taking is not, like, you're not confident, right? You may be taking action, but you're not portraying that you're the best fit for that situation, because you have all these, you got the little guy in your shoulder telling you you're going to fail, or they don't need you. There's so many things that even we've got to be able to learn how to, stop these thoughts, or because are they going to go away? Tell me a little bit about that.
I would say you can transform them. You might have a level of those coming in certain ways, but whether you believe into them or not, whether you buy into those thoughts, that's up to you. That's the choice that we can make. But I think that what is important here as well is what you were talking, like, yeah, we might still take action. And this is something I tell my clients, like, if you are taking actions, maybe you are doing the right things, but you are not getting results.
Yes.
People might pick up the energy that you put into the world. Like, yes, you are sending out messages, but then they get this feeling like, maybe I go to somebody else.
Right.
And if that is happening, there is most likely a limiting inner story behind. And this is an opportunity for you to work through these stories so you gain that freedom. And the thing I also do with my clients is to take a look of this whole thing, like the thoughts, feelings, and actions, why I go into this spiritual level, like seeing things from soul's perspective. And I believe our soul is all about learning. So what am I learning in a positive sense from this situation? So for me, it was learning to love myself more, learning to love life again. So it's always, there is something that you have gained, something you are learning, and something that you can use for your growth and upliftment.
Well, our mind is so pliable, and if you learn, I mean, obviously you know this, that the neurology and the synapses, we can really program our mind to believe whatever we want, and it will start to believe it. If we tell ourselves enough times something specific, we can manifest that, because our mind starts to believe that it is that in the process, and we can make things happen. So it's just having the right tools. And that's what I love about what you do, is you help your clients have the tools, so they're not out there trying to figure it out. They just follow your process.
Yeah. And the thing is that we don't always even want to go to these places. And that's why having support, having someone who's holding you the light, like, let's take a look, let me support you, is so crucial. Because, for example, if we have fear over something, we don't want to go there. We avoid it. And that's why these limiting stories also can just flourish in our life, because we don't want to take a look of them. That was my story for a long time. So I know how to avoid these things, how not to go there, how to pretend things never happened, but it doesn't make things go away. They are like beach balls. You're putting a lot of energy to hold a beach ball underwater, and they keep bouncing back up. They go to the surface over and over again, and you are using a lot of energy trying to keep them underwater and pretending that everything is okay.
Yeah, I love that analogy. So I tend to be a very black and white person. And my motivation when I did my very first Overcoming Mediocrity book, which is a co-authored book where there's a bunch of women sharing their stories, it was strictly business. It was I grew personally, but my business took off when I was able to have that book, because my clients connected with me more personally. There's just so many reasons why having that book and sharing my story helped me in my business. So I said, yes, I want my members, because I have a women's networking organization. I'm like, I want my women, my members, to have the opportunity to do the same thing. And so I was strictly focused on the business aspect. I had no clue how this was going to transform them personally. Like, that wasn't even on my radar. But not only have I helped over 200 women get their stories out there, but I've talked to hundreds and hundreds more. And it's just so neat for me to see women who were struggling, or women that were just kind of doing okay, but they were in my book. And yes, we do a lot of marketing. We give them a lot of exposure, but I saw their whole brand shift. I saw them just completely change from the beginning of working with them to the end of working with them. And it was all around mindset. It was all around their beliefs. It was all around them navigating their past story so they can really own their bigger story. And it's just such an incredible thing to see people transform that way. And I'm sure you have stories like that as well.
I do. I love seeing people to identify what's the block, what's the story that's hold them back. And when they start shifting the belief, the inner game, they start shifting the outer game. They can, again, like, for example, I had a client who had a fear over doing social media, like being visible. There was this story, it's not safe.
Oh, okay.
And then we did the inner story work, and very rapidly she overcame that fear and was able to start doing Facebook Lives, putting her work out there to the world so that she could connect with more people and sharing the gifts that she has. So that was just amazing to see a very quick transformation from like, it's not safe, I don't want to do it, to like, hey, I am doing Facebook Lives and sharing my work in the world.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, if you have been listening today, I am really excited to be able to share with you what Katja is giving as her free gift. It is 3 inner stories that block coaches and healers from reaching 6 figures in their businesses. So you want to tell our audience a little bit about what that is that they'll be getting when they sign up?
Yes. And this is for those who are maybe doing everything right, following strategies, but still feeling that they are not making the money they want, they are not creating the impact they want in the world. And it's not just because those strategies don't work for coaches or healers, it's because there is this limiting inner story that hold them back. And it is this inner story, more than anything, that affects the results we are able to achieve or not to achieve. And the good news here is that it is possible to transform this limiting inner story and set yourself free. And in this guide, you'll discover 3 inner stories that can block you from reaching those income goals. And I give you these examples because that might also inspire you to see what's happening within you. And more importantly as well, I share my 5-step process on how to transform them. So you can just follow step by step and start the transformation as you discover the inner story. And then you have these tools, how to start transforming the story.
Awesome. So I love that you're sharing the examples, but most importantly, you're giving them the steps to be able to apply to their own life. I love that.
That's right.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. Well, if you, we're going to put the link for you to get Katja's gift in the show notes. So wherever you're listening, what that's going to do, it's going to bring you to our gift vault. So not only will you get Katja's gift for free, but you will have access to other free gifts that some of our most recent guests have shared with our audience. So make sure you go in there, make sure you get Katja's. I know I am going to check out what you are sharing because what you specialize in, I don't. So I definitely want to learn from you on that process. So
beautiful.
But thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with our audience. I'm glad that we were able to, right after the holidays, get together and make this happen because I know we've been trying for a while.
Thank you so much for having me. And I love inspiring people. Just know that your story matters, and it really matters what story you are telling yourself within you.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. And like I say at the end of every show, if you learned something today, please share it with a friend, somebody you love, because you will retain more when you teach others. And of course, if you like our podcast, please go to whatever platform you listen and show some love, because the more ratings and reviews and likes we get, the better chance we have of getting amazing guests like Katja in the future. This is going to be a great year for me, for you, for our show, and for our whole audience. So I'm super excited to be able to share some of the guests we have coming down the road. So thanks everybody. And thanks, Katja.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Mastery Unleashed podcast, where we believe that everyone can have the business and life of their dreams by turning their mess into their greatest message and following their purpose to help the people who need their newfound wisdom and resources. To learn more, visit masteryunleashedpodcast.com. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review to this show.